What is the meaning of life? That is not merely, I think, the most important question that we can ask. It's one of the oldest questions. Human beings have been asking that question ever since there were human beings. And I think one of the reasons that we grapple with it and we wrestle with it and we struggle with the question, what is the meaning of life, is it's almost too big a question. There's a very influential American psychologist called Roy Baumeister, and he wrote a best-selling book a few years ago called Meanings of Life. In that book, Roy says that to answer the question of life's meaning, we struggle because there are actually four other questions we need to answer first. We need to answer the question of identity, who am I? We need to answer the question of value, what am I worth? We need to answer the question of purpose, what am I here to do? And we need to answer the question of agency, can I make a difference? So this is the first of 4 videos on this question, where we're going to take each of Roy's questions, his sub-questions, and have a quick look at them one by one. So let's take a look at the question of identity. What does it mean to be a human being? Well, if we live in a godless universe, if atheism were true, for instance, then really the answer to that is we are nothing more than the stuff of which we are made. There's a very well-known atheist cosmologist called Lawrence M. Krauss. And Lawrence, on one occasion, very famously said, he said, we human beings are nothing more than a 1% bit of pollution in the universe. Now that's pretty grim and pretty bleak, but I appreciate Lawrence's honesty, because on atheism, that really is all we are as human beings. We are nothing more than a very cleverly evolved primate. If you trace back our evolutionary history, we are just ultimately a collection of molecules, and if you go even further back, we are just a collection of bits and pieces, stardust blown around by the winds of time and chaos. But, you know, when you measure the amount of influence we have in this wider universe, we really are just that 1% bit of pollution. There's nothing special about human beings. Well, if that's your starting point, with our respect, you are never going to be able to answer the meaning question, because where do you go from something so bleak? Well, I want to suggest there's an alternative answer, because the Christian answer to the identity question begins on the very first page of the very first book of the Bible, where in Genesis 1, verse 26, we are told that when God created human beings, he created us, male and female, in his image. To be a human being, says the Bible, is not to be just debris and detritus, but it's actually to bear the very image of God. Now, there's much more that can be said, but wow, what a building block that you can then use to construct that much bigger answer to what is the meaning of life. That's the choice in front of us. Are you just a random accident with no worth at all? Or is there something more significant going on? So that's the first of the 4 questions that we need to think about in order to answer the meaning question. We've thought a bit about identity. Check out the other 3 videos in this series in due course, where we'll also think about the question of value, the question of purpose, and the question of agency.